So we're going to add a daylight system. The daylight system is going to give us a little more light, more realistic light. So we'll create lights, daylight system. And when we create this daylight system, it gives us a setup. We're going to select location. We're actually going to set this to be Burlington. It's in alphabetical order. And that's Burlington. Now we're going to have to draw this in. When we draw it in, we're going to first click. That's going to set our compass. You see our compass being drawn there. And it's going to allow us to set a little icon indicating the light. Click that. Move this compass down closer to our landscape. And now we can rotate this compass. So if we were actually creating a real model of Burlington, let's say, we could orient this daylight system so that it was facing the correct way. If you look up there in our 2D, you can see that the light's going to shine on it differently depending on where we set this compass because of how the sun comes up and how the sun goes down. So now at this point, if we render it, it's going to look a lot better as far as light. Actually, it'll look real lit up. We can see there's no shadows, things like that, because it's looks like maybe it's about noontime. So we'll click our lighting system. We'll go back to our setup. We can see down here, yeah, 12 o'clock. This allows us to actually animate the lighting. So let's throw a little animation there. We can see the clouds moving. We're going to start it over here at key 0. We're going to auto key it like we animate anything else and key it. We're going to stretch it out to key 100, and we're actually going to take our hours and we're going to increase our hours. And if you notice our light moving here, take it up to hour 23. Set our key, turn our auto key off, and we'll play it and we'll watch the sun move. And we'll look at it here. You can see the shadows. Now if we render it where the shadows are, you can see it looks a little bit more realistic. Alright, now we're going to add a few more pieces of lighting to our scene here. We already have the daylight system set up. Before we do that, we're actually going to draw in a couple of objects that we can light up. A little box here. Let's move that out so we can see it a little bit better. Now, if we look at this here, we're going to render it. Okay, we got our box. We'll spin our box around, get the other side. We got some shadowing going on here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to light this up for whatever reason. This may be a cabin set up in the woods or something like that. We may want some porch lights, whatever. We're going to come up here to standard. That's going to give us some other options for our cabin. So we're going to start off with the Omni light. The Omni light, this may be a porch light on the cabin, or maybe even a lantern inside the cabin if we created windows. So I'm going to click that. We're going to move it. Notice it got a lot brighter. Move it over. Move it up. Let's change our settings on this. Decrease our multiplier significantly. Let's render it and see what we got. Went a little bit overboard with that. And you can see our light actually starting to show up on the box there. If this were a lantern, we would leave it a little bit lower. If this was a porch light, we might want it a little bit higher. So there it is. Got a little bit. Increase our multiplier. so that you can see it even better. So now it's lighting up. We have actually almost no shadowing on that box anymore. If we actually want to allow it to interact with the box, we can move it a little bit closer to actually be able to see the light on the box. Let's say that we want to light the box up. We may use a target spotlight. Target spotlight works just like the target cameras, where we'll set the light and then we'll have to set the target that the light is shining on. So we'll draw our light first, stretch it out, a big light, move it up. Now I can actually adjust the target so that it's shining on the box itself. We can make all kinds of adjustments in the target light as well. We'll render it so we got, makes a little change there. Remember, we had the little porch light showing up. Now it's lit up. Our target light, we can actually move the light itself, and that's going to change how it reacts as well. Change the color of the lighting. Now you can see that the side of our box changed colors. We'll render it, see what we got. Now we got this red glow. And actually it's shining on all of our mountains as well. If we didn't want that, we could actually scale this down so it just was shining on our cabin there. We can also do this with this free spotlight. With the free spotlight, again, we'll click. I'm actually going to click up here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can see what we're doing this time so we don't get something too big for what we want. Scale it down pretty significantly. Rotate it. Again, this is a yellow color. You can see we'll change it to something we can actually tell what it's doing. And let's render it. And you can see where the red starts and where it ends, so you can actually see what the light is shining on here. One last light we're going to look at is a very useful light if you don't want to get into all of the daylight system, setting up the times and doing animation with that kind of thing. The Skylight, when you click on it and I click, you're going to notice some things change automatically here. Everything gets dark. I'm going to rotate my Skylight down. Right now it's at a flat part here and it's rounded. I like to have the rounded part down, signifying the light direction, a little bit of an angle. But we still have this black, and if we were to render it now, everything would show up black. That's because of the settings. We got to set up our multiplier here, and also this use scene environment. If that's clicked, that can also mess you up sometimes depending on how you have other things set up. So our multiplier, as we increase our multiplier, notice we're starting to get some light on our scene. And this will allow us to actually set, say we want it to be dusk or dawn, a little bit lighter, a little bit darker. And we'll crank that up a little bit and then we'll render it, see what it looks like. It takes a little bit longer to render with this system in there because we have our cast shadows on. But you can see that it's lighting up our area pretty good. The thing that's nice about the Skylight, it's very simple to use, but we can create some pretty neat effects with it. So for instance, this use scene environment, like I was telling you, if you have it turned on, everything gets dark and you have to make some other setting arrangements in order for it to work. But we're going to use this sky color, turn it on, and we're going to change the color. And as we change the color, it's actually going to change the color of our lighting. If you notice, you can have some pretty neat effects there. So if you wanted to have like a sunset scene, or if you wanted to do some really neat, if this were in a game environment or something like that, you may have a world that has, I don't know, a green sun or something like that. So we'll render that and see what that looks like. And you can see you got this green hue going on. And I do want to show you the difference on this cast shadows. With it turned off, just see how much difference it makes in the rendering. And later on, that's going to become pretty important when we start doing large scenes, when we have shadows and foliage and things like that. It's really going to bog the machine down if we're not careful and if we don't turn off certain things in order to actually create a final product while we're actually modeling our final product.